Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast on this Tuesday edition. I am Sterling Holmes, Josh Brisco with me, as always, on these lovely Tuesdays. Brisco, how you doing?
Stu, I'm excellent. You get married in like 45 minutes from now. So your mental state is a great curiosity to me. But the Chiefs are 3-0. We have a pretty clear view of what's been good and what's been not so good. So I'm fabulous. Are you okay?
Oh, I'm golden. We're like 10 days away. I have most of my things I need to get done. Still have a few things, and I'm very busy next 10 days leading up to the wedding. I'm nervous, I guess, because I think you're going to somehow ruin it. Don't know how you're going to yet. I have a good idea, I guess. But yeah, besides that, I'm excited. I'm thrilled.
Good. That's great. It'll just be me and 8 or 9 of my closest friends there to help crash your wedding. I have considered going extremely mustache heavy, bringing the mustache to your wedding since you won't have one at yours. But I'm officiating a wedding 2 weekends after, and I need more runway because I can't look like I can't do dearly beloved. You might be a redneck. I can't do Jeff Foxworthy at the altar for the wedding a couple weeks later. So I will figure out some way to bring pure chaos. And I also still need I got to get a new suit. Like I need a suit that's not the one that I got married in. And clock is ticking. So I might need to have you text me a little bit who that tailor was you go to, see if they can turn things around rather quickly.
Yeah, you can borrow mine. My suit's in the tailor right now. Supposed to pick it up next Monday or Tuesday. I'm cutting it close.
Yeah, I did the same. It's a scary feeling.
What's life without a little danger, huh? Let's go ahead.
Not a lot of time for alterations. If you get married in bell bottoms, you get married in bell bottoms at this point. You got to hope you had good notes and that your measurements didn't change.
Well, it's like the Chiefs. They don't need a large window, a large margin of error. They just make it happen. My wedding and my planning is like the Chiefs. It's just enough to make sure you get done, just enough to get by. Don't show anything you don't need to show. You can hold that back for later. I'm the Chiefs. That's what it's happening, right, Brisco? The Chiefs could blow out all these teams, but why would they when they could decide that, you know what, 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, let's go ahead and just not spread it out. Let's get everyone under center. Let's bring a linebacker in, and we're not going to QB sneak it.
Instead of making a joke about your average depth of target, I will take that baton and I will take it to the Chiefs in week 3, because unfortunately, I don't think it's as easy as they're saving the good plays. I think the flaws we've seen so far have been real flaws. We just, as was the case for much of last season, we have the luxury of talking about the issues after wins. So these aren't games unlike, the first game of the season last year, much of the chaos that followed. The Chiefs, this is a cliche that doesn't totally make sense, but the Chiefs do control their own destiny. They control their fate from here. If they keep winning, they'll be the 1 seed, and all of these things can be secondary. But there are real issues that eventually some team's going to get them on, and you just hope that happens in some random look-ahead game in October and not in January. And the Chiefs have been pretty good at figuring things out by January over the last few years.
Yeah, before we take a deep dive into the Chiefs, because there's a lot I want to get into, a lot of positives, some negatives, just an overarching thought as well, just of the NFL landscape and especially the AFC in totality. I do want to give a shout out to Underdog, because it is the greatest time of the year. Football being back, and football's back until February because it's the Chiefs. They're going to be playing until February. With over 1 million fans across 33 states, those folks got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player stats. I was on Underdog this past weekend. Last night, actually, almost hit just an absolutely massive one. 8-legger right there on Underdog. 8 picks. 7 picks correct. T. Higgins, my guy, needed 11 more yards from you. It's okay, though, because with Underdog, I did the flex pick. You know what that means? I still won money. Yeah, because 7 still works now instead of 8. So you just drop down. Also, I do the fantasy football on because my team's buns because I drafted Christian McCaffrey 1-1. So Underdog, every game basically is fantasy football. And I won that. I did a little random one with 2 other people who I have no idea who they were. And thank you to Jamar Chase. I won fantasy football last night because of Underdog. So that's kind of fun too. So if you want to try it out, make sure you go to Underdog. It's a simple to use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com. If you sign up with the code Arrowhead Addict, Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Arrowhead Addict to claim your new customer special. You must be 18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Nick Bolton, baby.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
I'm with the largest Nick Bolton hater west of the Mississippi.
I'm not even the biggest Nick Bolton hater north of the Minnesota state line or south of the Minnesota state line. Whatever.
Seth Kaiser, I get it.
Yeah.
Nick Bolton was incredible Sunday. He was
good.
Phenomenal in all facets. Pass coverage. Oh, if you think he was bad in pass coverage on Sunday, I'm going to drive to your house. I know where you live, and I'm going to throw on a green suit and kick your ass. Nick Bolton was electric the entire game.
Fix your camera, Boomer.
What happened?
You just keep throwing up little emojis around because you haven't figured out how to
I don't know how my hands work, okay? I'm just so enamored by the game Nick Bolton had and how any detractor could still be around after what he did. Because first 2 weeks, he was not great, but we saw him getting better. We saw him from week 1 when he's knocking the rust off, 80 snaps. Dude was gassed. Week 2, we saw him improve. And then week 3, he came out as an absolute maniac. Dude was a stud. Okay? Ain't no detracting that. The rust is knocked off. The left Gronkowski arm brace and all. It was fitting. Again, Leo Chenal, Mike Pennell, they did great in that last play. But it was fitting that it was Nick Bolton shooting the gap and taking down Bijan Robinson. All I got to say.
It was fitting that Nick Bolton took advantage of great plays by his teammates, and then when he gets his hands on a guy, that guy is coming down with them. That is the thing more than anything else that Nick Bolton is stupendous at. I don't think we have to make this a narrative-changing series of tackles. I think it was 3 tackles for loss. He had a good one on London in space. I don't think it was technically for a loss. It was unquestionably a good game from Nick Bolton, who did good things and did the stuff that he does well at a very high level. He was put in better positions in this game. He was going up against a team that was better suited for his skill set, where Kirk Cousins was not a whole lot of a threat to outrun him sideways to sideways, something that Lamar Jackson was able to do. Even Joe Burrow being able to maneuver the pocket a little better than this version of Kirk Cousins. Bijan totally shut down. All 3 weeks running games totally shut down by this Chiefs defense. Nick Bolton absolutely deserves credit for his game against the Falcons. It doesn't mean that he's ever going to, or at least ever should, get paid like Fred Warner. He was used like Nick Bolton should be used in that game, and he hit those marks stupendously. If that sets us back 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks in the Nick Bolton discourse, I think we'll all be worse off for it. It's another data point. This is a game that he has, that he is capable of, that not every linebacker is capable of. But if you're drinking out of a Mizzou mug, that's the game that you say makes him Fred Warner, and then in 3 years, you're going to wonder what's going on with Anthony Hitchens too.
Bad take. The guy I'm actually worried about is Drew Tranquill. We can keep talking about linebackers here for a second because I actually am worried about Drew Tranquill.
Yeah,
at least with Nick Bolton. At least Nick Bolton, we've seen the growth over the first 3 games. So I think there's at least saying, okay, the first game specifically, Lamar Jackson or not, a lot of rust, 80 snaps. There was a combination that went into that one. Okay, I think we can all agree there. Nick Bolton right now, believe it or not, I know you like PFF to an extent. I like PFF to an extent. Nick Bolton is graded out right now as the 17th best coverage linebacker in football. 17th out of 134. That's not incredible.
That's bad ranking.
Pretty good though, right? I mean, like, okay, but 17th. Whatever your thoughts are on PFF, they're not going to be that far off. Like, they're not going to. I mean,
coverage grades are a thing that I would have questions about because it's very hard to note the responsibilities of players, and we've seen Nick Bolton several instances throughout this season be the biggest problem on the field in coverage, but fair enough. Yeah, I mean, if you're making a Drew Tranquill point, I'll let you get there.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not comparing Nick Bolton to Fred Warner. That's I think just he's in his own world. Drew Tranquill, by the way.
If they want to make Nick Bolton the 17th highest paid linebacker in football, I'd entertain it for what it's worth.
Drew Tranquill, the guy that they decided to give a 3-year contract to, and I do think Drew Tranquill will get it figured out. It was basically a 2 with the guarantees and all that stuff, but it made him comfortable enough. They walked from Willie Gay Jr. in that 1-year, $3 million contract. Drew Tranquill's coverage grade right now is 38, 113th out of 124 linebackers. Drew Tranquill has not looked good. Drew Tranquill, he is, I want to say 29 now.
Yep,
maybe
this is his age 29 season.
29 season.
Turned 29 in August.
We'll get to Turk Wharton and FAU in the defensive line. I just want to stick with linebacker first here.
Sure.
What's going on with Drew?
I don't know.
Because he shouldn't just fall off like that. I know he's 29. For a linebacker, that's a little older. But last year, he was electric in all phases. The Chiefs liked him enough to give him a contract extension, which I think he deserved. And they liked him enough to say, hey, we trust you in coverage. That probably allows us to even move on from Willie Gay Jr. because we think you can do it all and be in the field at the same time as Nick Bolton. I don't know what's going on with Drew Tranquill. That to me has been the biggest issue for the Chiefs defense so far is the lack of, again, what they thought they were going to get with Drew Tranquill.
Yeah, no, it's kind of bizarre. The contract that takes you into your age 30 season is such a rare thing for the Chiefs to give out that giving Tranquill that deal, I don't think you and I probably would have talked about it as it happened, but having the conversations at the time, I was a little surprised by the number that it was, but I thought it made sense because it did at least fill in a couple of potential gaps. Where, and I would have given Willie Gay $3 million. Not that he was an elite coverage backer because he wasn't, but he was elite at a couple of things. And again, as we've talked about with linebackers, I'll take linebackers who are elite at a few things and then try to cobble that together. I think that's probably a good use of your money most of the time. I'm not sure where this leaves Drew Tranquill because as we can talk about Nick Bolton game by game and matchup by matchup, and I think it kind of just continues to Lego piece together who Nick Bolton is. I'm not really sure what the common thread is for Tranquill at this point. It's also not like he is in a rusty spot. He was like the engine of the defense throughout much of training camp, especially while Chris Jones was out for a whole bunch of camp. You saw him hunting for those past pro reps against Isaiah Pacheco, and you saw that intensity from him. He played really well last year and really well in the Mike spot that when Bolton was injured. That might have been Tranquill's best football, and at least you saw his value to the unit as a whole. I don't know what the theory is with Tranquill. I think it's at a point now where Steve Spagnuolo might actually be asked about that on Thursday, and maybe he'll provide a little bit of something, because while Spags won't throw a player under the bus who's not playing well, sometimes he will say something like, yeah, we've asked him to do a couple things that we didn't ask him to do last year. We're still figuring that out. Or, without Willie, it would be hilarious for Spags to start a sentence. Well, without Willie, because it felt like he never wanted Willie Gay on the field anyway. So maybe that's not a likely answer. But it is concerning. We talked about it last week, and I thought it was at least a little bit concerning when the middle of the field and tight ends and so much of the spine of the defense is a little bit of the largest problem. I don't have Tranquil's PFF grades split up by any delineation, but he had one of the lower grades of the group. It was a 54 via PFF from what I'm seeing here, which puts him weirdly down there with Leo Chanel, who only played 14 snaps in that game. It's another reason where I saw somebody mention Tershawn Wharton, who basically forced that pick himself as well. Turk Wharton had the third lowest grade on the team at a 48. I don't know what happened that made that be the decision there, because they were not getting run on, and he was getting pressure more so than the edges on this team by and large. So that's also, I don't know how Tranquil's grade or how Wharton's grade ended up that low, but not a cover yourself in glory game for Drue Tranquil. Chanel, again, with his grade being way lower than it seems like it ought to be. I think he impacted like 8 plays on 14 snaps or something like that, which is ridiculous and a good thing. That's not about Tranquil, though, who I do tend nerds. I tend to think Tranquil's probably going to play better football later this season, but it is concerning.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Tranquil plays better. I don't understand the PFF ones on Turk or Leo, because I thought Leo, again, also impacted the game a good amount. I wish we'd see more Leo. It is interesting that PFF overall, though, has Leo as the 7th highest graded linebacker overall in the entire NFL. Pretty impressive. I do want to talk about the defensive line, because Turk Wharton, I think, what was that, Josh?
That just, where do you have Leo overall from PFF?
I have it on the actual PFF. I don't know if you're signed into your PFF account.
Where does he? I mean, where do they have him for the year?
Yeah, 7th overall for the NFL.
Okay, that's fascinating. That's bizarre, because they gave him no love in week 3, and you've only got 3 games of sample size here. But if that's weighted by number of snaps, he played a lot more and played tremendous football through the first 2 weeks. So, just fun with numbers that is a little confusing there, as is Tershawn Wharton's.
Yeah, I thought Turk Wharton's played great all season long. He has been maybe the most unsung player on this defense so far has been Turk Wharton. And quite frankly, the Chiefs need that so far, because we can split the Falcons game up in 2 halves if you want to. The first half, when the Falcons offensive line was fully healthy and they were out there, Kirk Cousins had time to do stretches on his Achilles before every single throw. I mean, there was zero pressure on him, and the Falcons were carving up, for the most part, the Chiefs' defense. I don't blame the secondary, because they had to hold for 7 seconds. There was no pressure. And then they lost their center, and they lost their right tackle, and the floodgates opened. But Turk Wharton all season long has been, again, almost the Mike Dana, if you will, of the past few seasons, which is great. But the issue is Mike Dana is not winning at all. He had a great strip sack, but I'm talking strictly pressures here. I'm talking strictly winning early and getting the quarterback uncomfortable. Quite frankly, Mike Dana and George Karlaftis, to an extent, have really not done much. It's been the Chris Jones, Turk Wharton show. I don't know where your concern level lies in the defensive line. Obviously, we all want a Minahu back, but this is the same as last year. He wasn't back for half of the season. How effective is he going to be? Again, coming off of such a serious injury. We saw FAU, again, he's made a few splash plays this season. Not a ton of consistency with FAU. He was left unblocked, but made a great play. I mean, again, say what you will, being blocked or unblocked. I don't see Chiefs fans saying about when Matthew Judon was unblocked and forced Mahomes to throw it away. Everyone said, great play by Judon. It was a great play by FAU. I don't know where you land on, does FAU need to get more snaps? Does he start eating into Mike Dana? But the defensive line as a whole, I think we need to see a little more.
Yeah, no, I'm extremely concerned about the edge position in particular, because you're right. Tershawn Wharton's been the second best pass rusher on this team by a mile this year. I don't really think that's particularly close. Karlaftis may have an argument after that, but one of the things with Karlaftis that you mentioned, we've talked about on this show plenty, I really thought they were going to draft an edge in the first few rounds coming out in the last draft and try to reset that development timeline, but they were hoping for more from Felix. I am not interested really at this point in seeing more snaps from Felix. That is not at least the answer to me. You're right. When you're unblocked and you have a shot at the quarterback, you got to make sure you complete that play. He did that. That's great. It had nothing to do with any of the things you still need to see from Felix, which is his pass rush moves, his get off, the plan from point A to the quarterback. In this instance, the plan was get to the quarterback, smack his arm, get the ball if you can, because no other player in a Falcons uniform is touching you. He should get credit for that, but it doesn't answer any of the ongoing lingering FAU questions that I have, that everybody should have at this point. The other thing with the Minahu that you mentioned, an enormous part of where this season's going to go. But last year, he was coming off of half a season suspension, which meant he was the freshest player on the field. In this instance, we're talking about him coming back from that serious injury and rehabbing his way back to the field. There's not an arbitrary end date for him right now. It's going to be a matter of, when do you think you can probably play football? And then how do you get up to game shape and game speed? And we may not see, I mean, we have to at least acknowledge we might not see the version of Charles Omenihu that we saw last year at any point this season, because that process could take a while. I tend to think that maybe we will see a closer version of that guy come playoff time, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if we don't see him at all until week 10 or week 12, and then it's a 4 to 6 week kind of ramp up period for him to start to really look like himself again, and that's getting pretty late in the clock. So we both really liked Mike Dana. We both liked the Mike Dana contract for what it was. He has not been impactful to this point. I can't remember if this chart came out before or after last Tuesday, but I tweeted about it. And these metrics can change a little bit depending on where the outlet is and how the metrics are used. But it was, I believe it was NFL Next Gen Stats that was pressure rate percentage to either pressure rate to grade, or it was pressure rate to time to pressure, were the axes on the charts. And Mike Dana and George Karlaftis were both in like the bottom 10-ish of the league in terms of where you would put that diagonal line to connote the tiers of who is elite, who's winning a lot and quickly, who's winning slowly and not very often. Karlaftis and Dana, they had their differences. I think Karlaftis was winning more often, but not very fast, and Dana just wasn't winning very often or very fast when he did. You need to have more efficient and more immediate and more disruptive pressures off the edge. And I think Karlaftis can do some of that when the first move is made by Chris Jones or maybe even Tershawn Wharton. Dana can do a little bit of that, but it puts a lot back on your interior. And while I do think that Tershawn Wharton's had an excellent season, you're asking him to play like Chris Jones Jr., and you're asking an older Chris Jones to keep playing like Chris Jones, which by and large he has done. It's a fragile mix up front, I think.
Yeah, and again, Chiefs are 3-0. This is a great time for some tinkering to happen to try and figure out what you have. I just get a little concerned, and I don't want to be fooled by the second half of the Falcons with two offensive linemen out, and the defensive line looked good compared to the fully healthy Falcons offensive line that was giving Kirk Cousins all the time in the world. And quite frankly, that Falcons offensive line had been struggling in pass protection up to that point. I will say, how much of that was also a game plan? How much of that was, that's fine, stay in your gaps. You're not letting Bijan Robinson beat us, because Bijan, 16 carries, 31 yards. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, I don't know. I maybe we're looking too much into this without saying, okay, that's fine. But Spagnuolo and the Chiefs are saying, that's fine if the pressure's not quite where we want it to be. We're going to hold Derrick Henry. We're going to hold Bijan Robinson. We're going to hold Zach Moss and Chase Brown. You're just not going to do anything on the ground against us. I don't know what that trade-off is at this point, because again, Bijan for 16 for 31 is ridiculous. That's a phenomenal job.
Great game. Yeah, I think there was something to that against Baltimore. I don't think that's been a part of it since then. I think particularly with Lamar, because he was a threat to escape, that you may have had a little more contain and trying to hold your spots a little bit. The Chiefs just simply have not built this defense. Spags has never built this defense for stop the run and then we'll survive with everything else. I think more than anything, it's we may not give you the extra pressure help that you're going to get in the fourth quarter. You're not going to get it first through third quarters very often. Maybe on a third down here or there, you'll get one of those big red Spags buttons where you will see a unique pressure or a sim pressure or whatever.
It's but like engage 8. You're playing Madden with your boys. Yeah. You're like, you know what? Engage 8.
We're engage 8, but it's two safeties this corner and Mike Pinnell's dropping back into his zone. Good luck. Like, those are things you'll see down the stretch that helps the pass rush, obviously, because you're playing with the numbers and you're also playing with the quarterback's head. I just think we're at a point right now where when you say, hey, you 4, go get the quarterback, I think the Chiefs have one guy you expect to win one-on-one matchups consistently, and that guy, Chris Jones, basically never gets one-on-one matchups at this point. So I just think they're at a point right now where their 4-man rush is getting beat by most 5-man protections, and that there's going to be a slow enough process there for opposing offenses. One thing though, where I do think you're right to highlight the positive in a way to make sure you don't overreact. And this is kind of what I'm doing with the Bolton thing also, where I just want to have a long, wide bell curve on this, where we take plenty of our sample size and plenty of opportunities to check in on all of this. Next week, the Chiefs are going to send Mike Dana and George Karlaftis against you and me at left and right tackle. The quarterback might be one of our dogs. The Chargers are in a horrendous place right now, injury-wise, and it seems like they're going to be doing it outrageously shorthanded. So, hey, George Karlaftis, Mike Dana, you guys want to boost your numbers? Go ahead and do it on Sunday, because I don't know if Easton Stick is still back there or not. But
yeah, it is.
Chris Jones made $1 million sacking Easton Stick late last year. You can go ahead and make some offseason money by hassling whatever the Chargers roll out there on offense. But I don't want to overreact to that, because the next week it's the Saints, and where will their offense be? I don't know. It's kind of a up and down at this point. Then they have such an early bye week. It's crazy. And then it's the Niners, and you've got Trent Williams in a more high-flying, faster-moving offense that certainly was shorthanded and had its problems this week. It's so early in the year. And this, let me give you this, Stu. Here was my big overarching take at midnight after Sunday Night Football. Chiefs Falcons, in the grand scheme of things, when we look back, and this, I promise this is not Nick Bolton related. This is honest to God. This is engaging in good faith. Chiefs Falcons is going to be the game we think about the least come Thanksgiving. Just that by the time we get into real football, we're going to go, man, they opened the season against the Ravens and they beat the Bengals, and the Bengals stunk. Who saw that coming? And then they played the Niners after the bye. Oh, yeah, Falcons, Chargers, Saints in back-to-back-to-back weeks. What a weird stretch, where as long as they win the football games, as long as they're 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 through that stretch, we're not going to remember too many of those details, because it's going to be what happens in the middle and back third of the year that really dictates what this team looks like come playoff time. So I think ultimately Chiefs-Falcons is going to be the game that we have to work to remember in December.
I can't wait for the Chargers to have no Rashawn Slater, no Joe Walt, probably no Justin Herbert. I'll get to Derwin James in a second. Probably no Bosa, and it's going to be a Chiefs win on a walk-off field goal by Harrison Butker.
100%. 100%. 13-10. I am ready to submit 13-10.
You know what? Maybe it's 33-30. The offense breaks out, and all of a sudden, Easton Stick it turns into Andy Dalton. Like, who knows?
It's gonna be painful, and there are gonna be more Chiefs fans in LA than Chargers fans by a wide margin. They're gonna go home of the Chiefs, and then they're going to win 12-9.
I was laughing. I saw. I'll move on to Chiefs stuff in just one moment here. Saw a tweet that said, "What if Andy Dalton goes to every single team that's struggling?" And he just moves as a starting quarterback like it's bar rescue.
I was going to say it's like bar rescue. Perfect. Yes,
like, shut it down. Shut this down.
You put in Andy Dalton, and if your offense still stinks and he couldn't fix anything, then you know it's time to fire your coach and coordinator and move on.
Like he goes all of a sudden to Tennessee. All of a sudden, the Titans put up 30 points. Sorry, Will Levis, you're out. Okay, doesn't matter.
He's the who's the problem detector.
That was still so damn funny. Wild, against the Raiders too. That's just
which means the Raiders might be a playoff team with Andy Dalton. I don't know.
I thought Gardner Minshew was that guy. No, Andy Dalton's the guy. It's the red rifle. It's the red rifle.
Gardner Minshew is like chaotic neutral to Andy Dalton's true neutral. Like he's not quite Gardner Minshew, perfect Raiders quarterback. Unfortunately for him, perfect Raiders quarterback to lose to the Panthers.
Derwin James is most likely going to be out. He's trying to he's a suspension. He's trying to appeal his suspension for
your dog was upset about that news, and I understand.
Yeah, my fiance got home a little early today from work, and so that's why. Bailey, he sleeps by my feet during this podcast, but every once in a while, if he's just a good boy. Just a good little boy. But yeah, Derwin James most likely out because of a suspension. He's appealing it. We'll see, which kind of leads me into the offensive side of the ball for the Chiefs. Travis Kelce's been quiet. Mahomes has talked about it, how they've had plays designed for him, but 2 or 3 guys go his way. Obviously, it's allowing Rashee Rice to feast over the middle. No Derwin James. Is this a chance for Travis Kelce to break out? Is this a chance for him to kind of show, hey, it's not my age. It's not the offseason. Think back a couple months ago in February when he was the reason the Chiefs, one of the main reasons why the Chiefs, went so far in the playoffs and won the Super Bowl, because it is a little interesting, the dichotomy of, oh, Kelce's washed. And I'm like, okay, well, 5 months ago, though, he was looking like he was 25, and everyone's saying he hasn't looked this good in 5 years. That's so right. Which one is it? I'm more the case of, I think they kind of save him. I think that Mahomes isn't lying, that teams are still hyper-focused on him. I just wonder when the line crosses, the X and Y axis, when it's like, okay, I am concerned, because at least for me, I'm not there yet.
No, so I'm not genuinely concerned yet, nor do I really think this can be a Travis Kelce breakout game because of the things you've laid out already. And this is just sort of the toxicity of sports talk narratives. But if Travis Kelce goes out and he has 8 for 110 and a touchdown against the Chargers, it's probably going to end with people saying, well, that's why the NFL suspended Derwin James before the Chiefs game. There was a penalty in the first quarter that extended a drive where Travis Kelce got put in a chokehold. Like, there's always going to be a higher burden of proof on the Chiefs at this point by the way that the league has gone, by the way they have dominated the league, and for Travis Kelce being the most visible football player in the sport, he's also going to be under that microscope where I think he gets criticism that's unearned, and then he, obviously has international fame and credit that he has earned over the course of an excellent future Hall of Fame career. I think a bunch of the Travis Kelce narratives are overblown. I think some of it is interesting. I think the discussion of him being out of shape is ludicrous because he was out there for damn near every rep of training camp. And you know how those training camps go. I don't care that he was flying around during the offseason. You saw Patrick Mahomes shirtless celebrating a playoff win last year, and you saw a beer gut that looks like Sterling's. Is that what you're raising your hand for?
Good point. Fair. Just because he's on a long flight overseas, he could just be like Russell Wilson doing high knees. We don't know what he's
high knees in the walkway is so important. I saw a comment fly by, I don't know who it was from, but like the shot of him on the sidelines looking sad. Hey guys, football's hard and games go on, and I don't know if he was hot or wanting the ball or just having a quiet moment, but some of the microscopic views of all of this have made everybody sound foolish. I think it's interesting that he's played as much as he has so far this season without getting the ball more, because he has been out there for the lion's share of snap counts. This is not a drop off that way, which, by the way, if his physical fitness was a problem, he wouldn't be playing all these snaps. If wear and tear was immediately the concern, he wouldn't be playing all these snaps. I do think defenses are keying in on him. I think he also may be, yes, perhaps, seeing the beginning effects of being in his mid-30s, a thing that usually ends careers by now. But I don't think that that's going to end up being something we're talking about in effing January when he's had week 18 off, a first-round bye off, and then comes in and has 12 for 120 against the Steelers in the first or the second round of the playoffs, or whoever they end up getting there. I think people want there to be an end of an era, or want there to be a really easy button hook to put on the end of it. Not even a pun. There's like a button or a hook to put on the end of the narrative, and I just don't think we're really there right now.
This might be one of my favorite comments. Greg, great. It's not a dad bod. It's a father figure.
It's pretty good.
Electric. I love that.
Pretty good.
I've seen some questions in the chat right here, so let's get to this now. I don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but as you and I are both Josh Allen truthers,
hell yeah.
You know me from season 1 when he came into the NFL. I feel like I was alone on an island. I'm like, no, he is going to be a stud. You just wait. Yeah, he's the outlier, and somehow he was the outlier. So you know that I'm a huge Josh Allen supporter.
Yeah,
got some questions like, why can't Mahomes or the Chiefs operate like the Bills offense did the first half? I don't necessarily
have Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Easy. Next question.
He ran a curl route.
Did you know he was allowed to do that?
I didn't know he was allowed to run curl routes, and he came
Matt
back.
Nagy saw that, and he was
it.
like, guys, is that not on his contract?
Yeah, I was perplexed. But I am impressed with Josh Allen so far. This is not trying to take one down to the other. Mahomes has struggled to start this season. Josh Allen has been the MVP so far through 3 weeks. He looks unreal. The one thing I will say is we've seen this narrative before. We've seen this play out before. We've seen the Bills start off really hot. We've seen the Bills kick the Chiefs' ass in the regular season, and then come postseason time, what happens? I'm not saying that this is going to be the same storyline year after year, but I don't want to get too drawn into this in 3 weeks. I am impressed with what Josh Allen has done with the cast of receivers he's dealing with. It's very impressive. My one, again, it's even a pushback. I've been saying Josh Allen's the second best quarterback in the NFL for 3 or 4 years now. I'm just saying, let's just wait a little longer. Let's wait until week 12, week 13, because we know Allen and the Bills are great early in seasons. It's what happens down the stretch, what happens in the playoffs. They typically, they're the tail end of the roller coaster, while the Chiefs typically are starting to peak just at that time. That's my personal opinion. Yeah.
So are you saying to pump the brakes on the Bills standing in the AFC, or what?
Just in general, I've seen some people talk about how, why can't the Chiefs offense do what the Bills offense has done? My thing is the Chiefs are 3-0. The Bills are 3-0. There's no style points for winning in the NFL. Like, what the Bills have done is vastly impressive. I'm not disagreeing. Record's still the same. The Chiefs just have never operated in that way. And I see what Helicopter's saying Mahomes used to have games like Allen did yesterday. What happened? Yeah, Mahomes has not been great to start the season. Right. I'm not arguing that point. Maybe I'm wrong here. I think if the Chiefs need Mahomes to be Superman, he can still be Superman. The Chiefs' offense has just changed and it's evolved. They no longer are focusing on these explosive plays. They don't have an explosive running back. So it's not like, even with Pacheco's long this year was 11 yards. Game one his long was 5. Mm-hmm. They don't really have these big playmakers outside of Xavier Worthy. Hollywood Brown was kind of going to be that, but he's lost for the season. So they are running this dink and dunk offense. I don't know your thoughts here, but
I mean, Xavier Worthy should be one of those guys. The wild thing. So let me start with Buffalo then. First of all, you're right about Josh Allen. I can't see all the comments, but sometimes some Chiefs fans are so allergic to complimenting other quarterbacks when Mahomes is clearly the best quarterback of football, which he is, that you can overlook Josh Allen. And I just think you're doing yourself a disservice by doing that. Not only is Josh Allen the second best quarterback in football, he's the second best quarterback in football by a wide margin. If you're drafting quarterbacks for the future of your franchise, anyone who doesn't take Mahomes at 1 would be an idiot. Anybody who doesn't take Josh Allen at 2 would also be an idiot. CJ Stroud or whatever, Josh Allen has another gear that only Mahomes has. Playing at their best, Josh Allen is the only one that can meet Mahomes' level. Mahomes' best is better than anybody else's best, but Josh Allen's best is better than Patrick Mahomes' average, maybe. Now, how often do those guys hit those ceilings? You know what I mean? But he's the only guy that deserves any bit of that conversation. For CJ Stroud to quote unquote outplay Patrick Mahomes would have to have a bad day by his standard. And I say that as somebody who really likes CJ Stroud. So all of that to say, I think that we have gone full circle on the Josh Allen conversation to where I hope everybody can just appreciate that he's an absolute blast to watch. And he's more fun to watch when it's not related to your team. I stuck with that game last night way too long because I was paying the Jags tax so I could keep watching Josh Allen, right? 2 of my favorite quarterbacks in that game last night, Josh Allen and the idea of Trevor Lawrence.
I saw you tweet that and I lost it, dude.
The
idea of Trevor Lawrence is so good, man.
So it felt so good coming out of the hand. And Justin Herbert, you might be on watch. I don't know. Not right now. He's hurt. But he's in that category of, I love the idea of him so much. I think Herbert might get there. I think Lawrence might not. All of that to say, the best pass catcher on the Bills right now is Dalton Kincaid, and Dawson Knox might be second. This is an offense that is sort of just the pure will of Josh Allen and some fine players. I think to the Chiefs side of all of this, I understand, and I tweeted this yesterday also. Zach Eisen had tweeted out just the average depth of target, I think, for Mahomes throughout his career, and it's just been a steady decline. I think the last 2 years were tied, and this year's obviously very, very early, and left tackle concerns are part of that math. But I tweeted quoting the average depth of target thing. I can accept it, but you can't make me like it. And that's where I am on the Chiefs offense right now in terms of the explosive plays. You mentioned a style points thing, and I'm not saying this was the take you were getting at, but somebody else used kind of the style points thing in a derogatory manner earlier that I saw on Twitter, and saying, well, yeah, so the Chiefs aren't winning with enough style points because they don't get enough explosive plays. Boo-hoo. And I think it was Connor Christopherson that said, listen, explosive plays aren't style points. Explosive plays let you skip reps that you can screw up later and have a drive stall out in the red zone. If that 40-yard completion that gets stopped, I'm making up a play. If this 40-yard completion gets stopped at the 15 and then you can't get it into the end zone and you accept the field goal there, instead of that being a 65-yard, or what did I say? 55-yard touchdown all in one step there, you're costing yourself 4 points because you just have to take more of those reps. Teams can try to keep things in front of them, etc. There were routes yesterday or Sunday where Xavier Worthy was open downfield. He had some good explosive routes, and he saw the lowest percentage of snap counts that he's seen so far this year. Andy talked about it yesterday, saying that it was partially based off of what the Falcons were doing defensively. So they took Worthy out on a few things that otherwise he would have probably been in there for. And Reed also said that little miscommunication at the end where Mahomes led him and it looked like Worthy stopped his route and shouldn't have. Andy said that was not Worthy's fault. It probably was Rice's. It could have been Kelsey's, depending on the route combo and everything. But Andy said that was not Xavier Worthy's fault. Something to note because it seemed very obvious at the time that Worthy probably screwed that up. He did not. So I do think that this offense should care about getting the explosives back. I think they should care about pushing the ball downfield. I don't think you necessarily need to be comparing them to the Bills on a regular basis because there are just simply a lot of things that are different about both of these teams. I am buying the Bills as completely legitimate after being a lot lower on them through the offseason because so many key departures that they suffered. And I frankly don't believe in their head coach yesterday, today, or tomorrow. But I believe in Josh Allen as a force of nature so strongly that I think they're absolutely legitimate. That story still usually ends at Arrowhead in January, though. And I would still be inclined to believe that. I think you can give Buffalo all the credit in the world for what they've done so far. And I think you can respect them as a legitimate, maybe the exclusive legitimate threat to the 1 seed in the AFC at this point. There's a lot of football left, but the teams that are 3-0 at the top of the conference, and the Chiefs obviously have tiebreakers over half the AFC North already. You should respect the Bills. And frankly, I think you should kind of love the Bills, at least because that style of offense is so fun to watch. That also, both of those games last night, I should mention, both of those games last night were heavily impacted by the caliber of defense opposite Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels, where the Chiefs have not played a defense that miserable yet this year.
Well, Cam Taylor-Britt.
Sorry, I should hold on. The Chiefs literally did play one of those defenses this year, and it didn't look like what Jaden Daniels was doing. That's schematic, I think.
Well, and part of me is because
they haven't played the Jags defense, which
let's be real. The Bengals had their Super Bowl hangover. They played the Chiefs the previous week. That's their Super Bowl, and they lost, and so they had a Super Bowl hangover against the Commanders.
The Falcons were saying in week 3 that it might have been the biggest game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium history. They had a Super Bowl there, by the way. The Falcons, of course, weren't playing in it, but that was a Schefter tweet Sunday morning, was that many members of the organization believe this may be the biggest game ever had in the stadium's history. Arthur Blank is getting inducted into his own Ring of Honor, and you're getting free hot dogs and sodas to celebrate. It's like, oh, they are legitimately I know we're talking about the Bengals, but the Falcons legitimately treated that like like Bama was coming to their small school for a non-con game at the beginning of the year. It's like, how do we get Bama to come to us? Like, oh, well, we've gone to them the last 6 years in a row. And so they're doing a little road trip out here to us in South Alabama. It's like, okay, does that happen? That's how the Falcons were treating that game.
It's every single game against the Chiefs, whether it's the postseason or not, is the biggest game of the year for that team that faces Kansas City. And so the Kansas City, I know it's silly and maybe it's oversimplistic, but they will get their best shot, the best plays, everything about it. It's human nature that when you face the Panthers, sorry, Raiders, it didn't really work for you, versus when you face the Chiefs.
When the Chiefs played the Raiders on Christmas last year, it wasn't the Super Bowl.
That was their Super Bowl. That was their Super Bowl.
Right.
No, Chiefs didn't care.
Right.
Chiefs care, but they have bigger fish to fry.
Can I give
Raiders,
you a
if they
crazy
win 1 out of 2, they care way more.
Galaxy brain take that I think is about a coach that I don't think you are totally bought in on, but I actually think might kind of matter in one of these instances where coaches rarely do matter this much. It won't matter this upcoming matchup because of the circumstances, and it might not matter this year at all. But you know an NFL head coach who I don't think is going to treat Chiefs week like a Super Bowl every time?
Jim Harbaugh.
He's not going to treat it like a national championship game either. I kind of think there's a little bit of something to that, Stu. I really do. And it's not just have you won one before. Obviously, Harbaugh has been to a Super Bowl and won a national championship, but he seems to be able to manage guys throughout a long season, be it in San Francisco or at Michigan. I'm not sure Sean Payton's there. He's a veteran coach that's been to the big game, but he kind of feels like a guy who's making every day the Super Bowl. Harbaugh's bit seems to only have like a 3, 4, maybe 5-year shelf life before it starts getting kind of old. But man, I see a lot of teams that do not seem to have a compass right now, that do not seem to have like a real ethos. And I kind of think the Chargers are going to have one of those. Again, I don't really think it's going to end up in the Chiefs losing that game coming up this weekend. And I don't know that it's going to end up impacting them in Arrowhead whenever they get the Chargers a second time. But with that in mind, the coaches on Fraud Watch right now, I think, are the Zach Taylors and the Nick Siriannis and even Antonio Pierce, who's talking about business decisions after a game against the Panthers. Some of those guys don't feel like they have the pulse of the team quite figured out. And I kind of think Harbaugh might. I'm sort of interested to see how that develops, because I think he's the only other coach in the division right now that should have that part of it at least figured out.
2 more things I want to get to before we get out of here. I want to talk about Wanye Morris in the left tackle situation. Sure. I want to talk about Xavier Worthy in a little more detail. Before we do that, Mint Mobile. Because with big wireless providers, what you see isn't what you get. The price magically skyrockets somewhere in between the store and your first bill. With Mint Mobile, you don't have to worry about that, because when Mint Mobile says $15 a month, they mean it. So to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/arrowhead. That's mintmobile.com/arrowhead. You can cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/arrowhead. $45 upfront payment required. That's equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right. Let's get to Xavier Worthy first. We talked about it. That one play aside, I shouldn't be surprised, but I am on how the Chiefs are using Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be surprised because the Chiefs somewhat did the same thing last year with Rashee Rice. Completely different styles, but the same as in they almost pigeonhole you the first 8 games of the season, say, hey, we're only going to use you at the line of scrimmage. Xavier Worthy, we're basically only going to use you on either end arounds or streaks. We're not going to use you in between. And then you see him, just like Rice last year, what happens when he dusted his dude? It's a wide open touchdown, and all of a sudden, okay, now we can use you on deep balls. Well, I'm watching Xavier Worthy get open. I'm watching Xavier Worthy, that one in the end zone where he just absolutely cooked. I don't know if it was Mike Hughes, if it was Terrell. I don't know who it was. But I mean, just an absolute cook job. And I'm almost wondering, I hate this, but people think Xavier Worthy is a fast receiver, when in my opinion, he's a receiver who's fast. He's a guy who gets open first and foremost, who also has elite speed. I don't think it's elite speed first, and then, okay, yeah, and now he can also catch the ball here and there. It's not the John Rosses, the Darius Hayward Bays. I think he's a legitimately talented route runner. And so I get a little confused and maybe a little irritated, and I shouldn't be. The Chiefs are 3-0. They know what they're doing. They're easing him in. But when I'm told after the game that he was in the right spot, so that means he knows the playbook, right? That's what that told me was, okay, so he knows the playbook. He knows when Mahomes audibles at the line of scrimmage what to go into. That's impressive. He knows how to get open on not just a deep ball. He's cooking his guy. Why can't we throw him out there for more traditional plays instead of only pigeonholing him into these gadget plays that, to me, McCole Hardman could do?
Yeah. And so Worthy ended up, I think it was exactly 50% of the snaps, which was still a lot of snaps because they ran a ton of them. I think those are all totally fair questions. My best guess to the answer is that Andy Reid, in large part, is kind of just running you through these tests of like, prove that you can do this. Show me that you understand it. Do it on the field. You got it. Next week, you get a little extra, you get an extra scoop on your plate next week throughout the game plan process. With that said, though, it does feel like Worthy has proven what he needs to prove there. The near pick coming across the front of the end zone, I wonder if Mahomes wanted him to flatten that out more and then to box out. I do think it was Hughes, and to use his body for separation there. But if Mahomes puts it in the corner with a little air under it, Worthy's going to get there before Mike bleeping Hughes gets there. So, or whoever it was, I think it was Hughes. I am with you when part of the problems with this offense right now seems to be that you don't really have your number 2 wide receiver being a guy that can be an impact player when it's Justin Watson. And you lose Hollywood Brown. It seemed like the onboarding process for Worthy really accelerated. Week 1 against the Ravens, I understood why his 2 touchdowns were a designed run using your lineman in space, and the second one was a blown coverage. That never meant to me that he was going to be a Rookie of the Year candidate. I did think that he would still be a heavy part-time player, if that maybe even the legit number 2 receiver on this team is pass catcher 3 or option 4 before Pacheco got hurt. But at this point, I do want to see now, what will it take to see that workload jump? Because if it just goes back to increasing week over week from here on out, and you just don't want to fully overwhelm them or whatever and swap those snaps out with Justin Watson, fine, I guess. But I do think it's important the Chiefs find that gear that Worthy should help them unlock somewhere within the middle third of around the halfway point of the season, even middle third of the year. I want to see that that's something you can go back to, because then you can really refine that and then put the fear of God into opponents that now, hey guys, rookie Xavier Worthy is ready to eat downfield. If you give them give him that attention on the sideline. Meanwhile, Rashee Rice is feasting for 10 yards per catch over the middle. That's this offense finding a dangerous space by just relying more on Worthy. I just need them to start doing that soon.
Yeah, I mean, the new Amon-Ra St. Brown's what it looks like, a.k.a. Rashee Rice. That's basically the same mold, that power slot, if you will. Again, the Chiefs are 3-0 coming off of back-to-back Super Bowl victories, right? We're finding things to pick at, but I just feel like Xavier Worthy has a lot more to offer this team even early on in his rookie season, based on what I have seen him getting open. And maybe part of it is on Mahomes. Maybe he could have had some larger numbers. The fact that he is getting open and Mahomes isn't quite looking his way, although he has looked at his way deep, and whether it was on Worthy or an underthrown ball in the end zone remains to be seen. Obviously, Mahomes underthrew him on the interception to Cam Taylor-Britt. It's not like Mahomes hasn't completely not looked his way, but there's been a couple of times where I thought he was open more, even over the middle of the field, where I'm just a little confused on. I do want to get into Wanya Morris before you
got a little news. I got a little smidge of news for you. That Field Yates says that Kareem Hunt has signed to the 53-man roster and Keontae Ingram has been waived. I imagine he'll be back on the practice squad, but Kareem Hunt will play against the Chargers, barring a setback here, it looks like.
Well, so my factor fiction today has already become fiction. I said Keontae Ingram gets one more week and Kareem Hunt gets one more week on the practice squad. So Kareem Hunt looks like he'll be on the 53. Would imagine that means he's active game day. Would hard to believe that they don't activate 3 running backs. So it looks like it will be Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, and then Carson Steele as your 3 running backs active against the Chargers this week. Wanya Morris, real quickly before we get out of here. I thought Wanya actually had a pretty nice game overall. There were 2 specific plays that I thought he got torched on, and which is going to happen, right? Yeah. It's going to happen. You're not going to win every single one, especially as a second-year, third-round swing tackle. But what he did after those 2 specific plays that he got beat on really made me enthused for him going forward. His 2 best reps, I thought, were the 2 reps after he got beat. It wasn't like he was in his head. It wasn't like, oh, man, can I not hang anymore? It was, I got beat. You ain't going to beat me again. And I was very impressed by that. I don't know if you noticed that. I don't know your takeaways on Wanya Morris. I think Wanya is going to be the starter for the next 3+ weeks, probably at left tackle. That's where I have it. I think the next time they make a move, if they put Kingsley back in soon, that means he's your guy. I don't think you put Kingsley back in and then all of a sudden he plays bad. Okay, we got to pull him again and that's too difficult. I don't think they do that. That's probably going to destroy Kingsley's confidence. I think Wanya has it for the next few weeks. I thought he played pretty good overall. What's your takeaway?
I might tell you that their only real chance to do a reset would be after 2 more games, because then you have the bye week ahead of the Niners game there, and you think Kingsley is ready for Nick Bosa. I guess you can line him up for that game. I was, first of all, surprised that Wanya Morris got the start. I thought Wanya was going to be the stopgap emergency. You play a little game with the Falcons all week. Kingsley's out there for the first snap, and then Wanya is back to being the 6th O lineman. I thought Kingsley would get every snap at left tackle in this game if I would have had to pick. He got 0 snaps at left tackle and got 2 snaps as like the 6th lineman. Thought he played fine, and that's not. I'm not being dismissive because Kingsley did not play fine in week 2. Fine was an upgrade. I still kind of think that Kingsley ends up with the inside lane because certainly he's the guy they'd rather have be the long-term answer at left tackle. He's only 1 contract year younger, but I think he's 3 or at least 2.5 years younger as a 21-year-old. And Morris either just turned or will turn 24 very soon.
He is 23 right now, but I think you're correct that he turns 24 soon.
It's like within the next couple of weeks, I think. So, and Kingsley obviously was the guy they went and got when they weren't sure that Wanya could be the long-term answer. If you thought Wanya was the long-term answer, you could re-sign Donovan Smith to be your backup, let Wanya go in as the presumed starter, and then draft somebody else, draft defensive end in the 2nd round to bolster that group. I still think Kingsley is probably the goal, but it's nice to know that Wanya Morris can go out there and be fine and at least not get baptized the way that Kingsley did. We also saw Wanya have a similarly tough game against Max Crosby last year, very early in his NFL career. So I'm not fully out on Kingsley. I do think it makes sense at this point that Wanya starts up until the bye week, and then maybe the Chiefs look again there. But ultimately, if they're playing well enough, Andy does not do a lot of lineup adjustment due to play on the offensive line. It's usually due to injuries. If somebody gets hurt, then maybe that changes. Juwan Taylor gets hurt, Wanya goes to right tackle, Kingsley's back. Somebody on the interior gets hurt, maybe Wanya is closer to being ready than Hunter nor Zad. But I don't know, man. At this point, it wouldn't surprise me to see them just let Wanya keep that job as long as he doesn't actively lose it. But I still think they'd rather have Kingsley be the long-term answer, if that makes sense.
I'm with you. It's almost like the Steelers at quarterback right now.
Right.
Yeah. Russ is still injured until Justin Fields looks bad. Right. He's still injured until Fields look bad. I'm with you. Kingsley, I think, is a long-term answer. I'm not giving up on Kingsley, but this is why I said I wanted Wanya to start the season. I almost wanted to give him a red shirt year because I thought Wanya would be this, a.k.a. Donovan Smith.
Yes, right. That's why they never needed to sign Donovan Smith or David Bakhtiari or whatever.
I thought Wanya could do it. Wanya Morris has given up 2 pressures in 88 snaps overall. I don't have all the pass snaps up. I'm sorry, I just deleted that tab. But
I'll tell you what, Kingsley's rate was worse. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. I'm happy Wanya Morris is on this team. It was why I was so thrilled when they drafted him. Those swing tackle spots are so important, and you're seeing it with Washington, how a good offensive line with Allegretti and Andrew Wiley can make a team look a lot better. Brisco, you always look good. Everyone in the chat, you guys always comment good. That was bad English, but I
And
appreciate
Sterling,
all you guys.
you always talk good.
Thank you. Even the Raiders fan that every once in a while comes in here, which, you know what? You almost got to tip your cap after getting your just getting your ass kicked by the Panthers, after getting the doors blown off by Andy Dalton. You're still talking smack. You know what? Respect right there.
That's showing up to school on a Monday after your team gets its teeth kicked in prime time. I respect that absolutely.
Everyone, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. This is the Arrowhead Addict podcast, the Tuesday edition. I'll be back tomorrow with Adam Best on Wednesday. Brisco, you can listen to him more in about a half hour right there on KCSN. Only Weird Games. Until next time, we are out.